Hi there. In this video, I'll guide you through Excel's min, max, small and large functions. Whether you're looking for the highest or the lowest values or sorting out rankings, these functions are essential for mastering data analysis. So without any further ado, let's quickly get on with the video. Let's start off with the min and max functions. The min and max functions help you find the smallest and the largest value in a range of cells. Now, if you look at this data we have on your screen, we have some names here and we have their scores in economics, maths, and English, right? And let's say if you want to identify the lowest and the highest scores in economics, you can use the min and max functions. Okay. Now the thing to note here is that these functions only consider cells with numeric values in them, which means that if the range that you select has text, empty cells, or logical values, these functions would not consider them. Another important thing to remember while working with these functions is that if in the range of cells you select, there are cells with error values in them, the function will result in error. Now that we understand these important points, let's see these functions in action to understand them better. All right, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll try to identify the lowest score in economics. So we'll start off with the min function, which is equals to min bracket open. I can come here and select this range, close the bracket, press enter, and the output we're getting is 40, which means 40 is the lowest score in economics. Perfect. Let's try to identify the highest score in economics is equals to max bracket open. I'm going to select the same range once again and close the bracket and press enter, and the output we're getting is 99, which means 99 is the highest score in economics. Perfect. Let's try to identify the lowest score in maths. So for that, I'll come here and start off with is equals to min bracket open, and I'm going to select this range, close the bracket, press enter, and the output we're getting is 72, which means 72 should be the lowest score in maths. But if you look carefully in this range, you'll see we also have 70 here. But if that is the case, why did we get 72 as the output for min and not 70? Now to figure this out, what we can do is I'll simply come here and select this range, and I'll go to home, and in home I have this central alignment button. I'll just click on it. Okay, so the central alignment is now taken off, and the cells are now aligning their content based on the data type they're holding. Okay, now if you know, numbers are always aligned to the right, logical values are always aligned to the center, okay, and text is always aligned to the left. So when you see these two numbers here, they're aligned to the left, which means they're actually text and not numbers. And that is the reason why the min function was not able to take 70 here, but it returned 72. We'll see how to fix this, but before that, let's try and identify the highest score in maths. So we'll come here, is equals to max, bracket open, and I'm going to select this range once again, close the bracket, and press enter, and the highest score that I'm getting here is 92, although we have 93 here, but as we understand, 93 that we see here is not really a number, it's a text, and that is the reason why the max function is not able to return 93 and it's returning 92. Now to fix this, what I normally do is, if I'm working with numbers, the first thing I do is, if the numbers are central aligned, I make sure that central alignment is taken off. So I'll come here, select all the numbers that I have in this table, go to home. In home, I have the central alignment button. I'll just unselect that. Now all the cells are aligning their content based on the data type, right? Now I know what I'm working with. I can see that these two numbers are actually not numbers, these are text. So now what I can do is select just this range and go to data. In data, I have text to columns. Click on text to columns and simply come here and click on finish. And if you look carefully, the numbers that looked like text are now actually converted to your regular numbers. And since they are now converted to numbers, the min and max functions are able to include them in their calculation. So now the minimum value or the minimum score that you see is 70 and the highest score in maths is 93. Perfect. Let's try and identify the lowest score in English. Is equals to min bracket open. I'm going to select this range, close the bracket and press enter. And just like I told you initially, if in the range of cells that you select, you have any cell, any number of cells that have error values in them, the function will result in an error. Okay, the same goes with the max function. If I enter max, bracket open, and select this range, it should return an error because we have an error value here. Close the bracket, press enter, we're getting an error. So like I explained in the beginning, these functions only consider cells with numeric values in them, right? Which means that if the range that you select has text, right? When we had text here, the function was not able to include those cells in their calculation, if you remember. So if you have text in the range, those cells will be ignored. If you have blank cells, now look at these two blank cells here. This one is your regular blank cell, and this one looks like a blank cell, but we have a function here which is actually returning an empty string, which is why it's a blank cell. So the function min and max, they will ignore such blank cells. And if you have a logical value in your range, those will also be ignored. Now the thing to note here is true and false are the only two logical values in Excel, but true and false can also be represented by 1 and 0. 1 for true and 0 for false. Instead of true and false, if you have zeros and ones in the range, Excel would not know that these are logical values and they will be included in your calculation. So there is a possibility that you get a minimum score of 0, while that is not the case. You could have the real minimum number could be something else, but since your logical value is represented by 0, the minimum function might return 0. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Now that we understand these two functions, let's move on to the small and large functions. Now, unlike the min and max functions, where they always return the smallest or the largest value in the range, the small and large functions are used to find the kth smallest value in the range. For example, if you have a list of numbers and want to find the second smallest or the third smallest value, the small function can be used. Similarly, if you have a list of numbers and you want to find the third highest or the fifth highest value, the large function can be used. And just like with the min and max functions, both these functions would not consider cells with text, blank cells, or cells with logical values. Alright, let's use these examples here to understand both these functions better. Let's say we're trying to identify the fourth lowest score in economics. Let's see how we can use the small function to identify the fourth lowest score in economics. So that is equals to small, bracket open, and since we are looking for scores in economics, I'm going to select this range, comma. The second argument that you see here is k. K is basically the rank that you're trying to look for. So here we're looking for the fourth smallest value. So k here would be 4. I'm going to close the bracket, press enter, and it says that 59 is the fourth lowest score in economics. Okay. Similarly, let's try and identify the second highest score in economics. So we can use a large function for that, is equals to large, bracket open, and we'll select this range. That's our first argument, comma, and we're looking for the second highest value. So 2 would be k's value. Close it, press enter, and it's giving 88 as the second highest score in economics, right? We have 99, that is the highest score in economics, and the second highest score here is 88. Perfect. Let's try and identify the third lowest score in maths. So if I come here, I'll start off with is equals to sign, small, bracket open. I'm going to select this range, and we're looking for the third smallest. Let's look for the second smallest actually. I'm going to enter a comma, and 2 would be k's value. Close the bracket and press enter, and we have 77. All right, so the lowest value that we have here is 70, and then we have 72. So the second lowest value should be 72 and not 77, which would mean that the function is not able to include all the cells in here. And just like in our previous example, what we can do is select this range, go to home, and unselect this, and we can see that these two cells, just like in our previous example, they hold text and not numbers. Okay, and if you remember, to fix this, what you can do is you can simply go to data and select text to columns and simply click on finish. The numbers are now converted into proper numbers. And you can see 77 is changed to 72 now. Perfect. Let's try and identify the third largest score in maths. So large, bracket open, this would be my range, comma, I'm looking for the third largest value, so 3, close the bracket, press enter. 90 is the third largest score in maths. And since we had realigned all the cells and we had converted all text into numbers, we know that this number is correct. So we can be sure about it. All right, let's try and identify the fourth lowest score in English. So is equals to small, bracket open. I'll select this range. And since we're looking for the fourth lowest value, the K value would be 4. Close the bracket and press enter. It's returning an error. Just like I told you in the beginning, these functions that we're dealing with in this video, all of these functions will return an error if in the range that you select, there you have any cells that have error values, the function will result in an error value. Similarly, if I try with large, and let's say I am looking for the second largest value, if I enter comma and enter 2 for the second largest value, close it, press enter, it's returning in an error, just like in our previous example. Now let's see how we can use the large and small functions to generate a list of 3 lowest scores in economics or 4 highest scores in economics. So what I'm trying to do here is, all this while we were only getting one value, but now we're trying to generate a list of values. So 3 lowest scores, 4 highest score, that's what we're trying to achieve. But to do that, the small and large functions on their own are not enough. Okay, so here we'll introduce another function, which is rows. So let me start off with is equals to rows, rows, open bracket. And if I, let's say, select these cells, close the bracket and press enter, it will basically count the number of rows in this selection. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. This function should return 7. If I press enter, we're getting 7, right? Let's try and modify this is equals to rows, bracket open, and instead of just selecting one column, I'll select multiple columns and multiple rows. Now if I close the bracket, the output should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 should be the output because there are 9 rows in the selection that I've just made. If I press enter, it says 9. Similarly, if I write rows again, open bracket, and let's say I select just one cell and close the bracket, here we have only one row, so the output should be 1. Okay, remember it has nothing to do with the cell that you're selecting. It's not bothered with the value of the cells that you're selecting. It's only looking for the number of rows in the selection you're making. Okay, so the selection could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it does not matter. Okay, another thing that I want to show you is when you select a range of cells, let's say if I select this range of cells, look at how the selection is created. So the first cell that you see here is K13, which is the cell from where we are starting our selection. And the last cell address that you see here is K16, which is basically the last cell in the range that we selected. Similarly, let's try another range is equals to, starting off from here till here. Okay, the first cell that you see here is C6, right? And the last cell that you see here is F17. So from C6 till F17. That's how Excel knows what you've selected. Let's use this and the rows functions to generate a list. What I'll do is equals to rows, bracket open. I'm going to select the cell right next to the cell where I'm typing in this function. Okay, and once I've done that, I'm going to press the right arrow key to go back into the cell where I'm writing the function. Okay, so I'm basically self-referencing. I'm writing the function in J3 and I'm giving reference to J3 itself. Okay, now what I need to do is I can press shift and semicolon and look at what it did. As soon as I press shift and semicolon, it's basically generating a range reference. But if you look carefully, both the first and last cell references that you see there are both pointing to the same cell. Okay, which means if I close this function and press enter, how many rows do we have there? We have one row, right? If I tweak this function a little bit, what I can do is I'm going to press F2 and I'm going to select the first cell address. Okay, I don't need to select all of it. I can just select a part of it and press F4 to lock it completely. Okay, so the range reference that we have here, in it, the first cell range is locked. The second cell address that we have here is not locked. What that would do is, if I press enter, since we are pointing to the same cell, it will return number of rows 1. Okay, but if I come here and drag this function down, I'll get a series of numbers. How is that possible? Because when we locked the reference, we only locked the first cell address and not the second cell address, which means here it's pointing to J13, J13, but as soon as I drag it down, the first cell reference is still J13, but the second one has moved to J14, which means it has 2 rows in its selection, and that's why it's returning 2. Similarly, the case with 3, if I select this, I can see that the first cell address that I have here is locked, the second one is not locked, which means I'm getting a range of selection, and in this range I have 3 rows, and that is why I'm getting 3. And similarly is the case with 4. What I can do with this is, so what I'll do is I'll press F2, okay, and I'll come right next to the equals to sign and I'll enter the large function list of 4 highest scores in economics. Okay, so I've opened the large function, and for array I'm going to select this range, okay, comma, this rows function will determine my k value. If I close the bracket now and press enter, I'm getting 99, which is basically the top score in economics. And this is possible because my rows function is returning 1. You can see it's J13, J13. There are only 1 rows here, and that's why it's returning the top largest value in economics. If I drag this function down, it should give me the 4 largest scores in economics. But one thing that I need to do here is, before I drag the function down, I'll need to ensure that this range is locked. And I'll select the colon and press F4 to lock that range. Press enter. This is my highest value. If I drag this function down, I'm getting the top 4 highest scores in economics. I can do the same thing for small. So come here and is equals to small, bracket open, and this is my range, comma, and for the k value I'll use the rows function. So rows, rows, bracket open. The array that I need to enter here is basically it's a self-reference array. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the left cell and go back to the right cell to basically self-reference, and I'm going to press shift colon, and this has generated my range reference but pointing to the same cell. I need to come here and make sure that the first cell reference is locked. So I'm going to lock this, press F4, right, it's completely locked. I can now close this and close the small function. It's now giving me the scores in reverse order, which is this would be the lowest score, and then we will have our second lowest, third lowest, and fourth lowest. So I just need to come here and drag this down, and we have 4 distinct values here. All right, if you come here and select this and press F2, you see this rows range reference is basically pointing to the same cell. In the next cell, if I press F2, I'll see that the range is now expanded. So basically the rows function is now selecting these two cells, and the output you're getting is 2 and not 1. Okay, so basically the small function is now going to look for the second smallest value in this range. And once again, before dragging down, I need to ensure that this range is locked. So I'm going to come here and click on F4 to make sure that's locked. Press enter. I can now drag down and it should always give me the right value. So remember, if you make a small mistake, you could possibly get totally different numbers. So make sure when you're working with these functions, you're very sure what you're doing. All right. So that's how the min, max, small, and large functions work in Excel. I hope you were able to understand how these work. Another important point that I forgot to explain here is the k value that we enter in case of small and large functions. The k value cannot be less than 0 or greater than the count of cells in the range. Okay, if the k value is less than 0, so basically if it's a 0 or less than 0, then it will give us a error. And similarly, if the k value is more than the number of cells you've selected in the range, even in that case, the function would result in an error. Okay, otherwise, unlike the min and max functions where they always return the smallest and largest values in the range, the small function and the large function are used to find the kth smallest and largest values in the range. Okay, so I hope you understand all these functions pretty well now. If you have any doubt, please make sure you write in the comment. If you were able to learn something new, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, and please click the bell notification so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. Take care. God bless.